Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. Erica and I are here today to talk about NutrEval. We've had a lot of technical issues trying to do this live in the Facebook group, so we are trying to use Zoom for our weekly office hours, and we're hoping that it'll be a little bit of a better experience for people. We can share our screen, which we can't do in the Facebook group, and we can both be here at the same time and not fumbling trying to wait for Facebook to connect to let Erica join us. So I think it will be a much better experience. We're going to try it out. If you guys want to let us know what you think, you can drop a note in the comments below once this gets posted into the Facebook group. But yeah, today we're talking about the Genova NutrEval test. If you are a client of ours, you might have taken this test. It's one of my personal favorites. I think it's super helpful. I honestly think everyone should be doing it every single year. This is like the ultimate thing that you can do, in my opinion, in terms of wellness and prevention for optimizing your health. So Erica, why don't you tell us a little bit about what NutrEval is and who benefits from NutrEval testing?
Yes. So as you can see on the screen, these are just a couple small snapshots of what is included. And the reason I like this test so much is because you really are able to take a step back and look at the whole picture. That's one of the things we really focus on in functional and integrative nutrition, is trying to piece all of the puzzle pieces together to create that picture. And sometimes what happens, like let's say we just look at the gut, and on the gut test, there might be clues or hints towards toxic exposure, for example, but we don't have actual information on that, where this test can actually show us specific elements that are high, nutrient needs that are high. It's no longer just what you eat is, what you digest and absorb and utilize. This test is able to look at what your specific nutrient needs are, where you might be deficient, if you're even absorbing these different foods. So like you said, everybody would benefit from getting this done. As we age, as things change, different locations you're in, that can cause different needs throughout the different time frames in life. You can see this first one, this functional imbalance score. So if you've done a GI effects with us, you understand this scoring. And I like this as a place to start because I don't know if you can read this or not, but we look at oxidative stress. We look at mitochondrial dysfunction. We look at omega imbalance. That is such a big piece that is often not looked at carefully. And a lot of people have an imbalance, and omegas affect every single cell in our body. So it's important that we have good structure there. We look at that toxic exposure, like I discussed, and then the methylation imbalance. So we are each unique. It's precision nutrition that we're trying to get at with this. So we're optimizing people's health by looking at this specifically. What did I miss?
You didn't miss anything, but I would just like to kind of talk about the importance of the scoring and kind of what it means. So oxidative stress is what we're trying to prevent, right? That indicates free radical damage to tissues, and that's kind of what underlies heart disease and cancer and diabetes and all of the things that we don't want to have. Oxidative stress plays a part in that. Mitochondrial dysfunction, I don't know if anyone remembers, I feel like this is such a high school biology definition, but the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's literally in your body what makes energy. And this tells you how your energy producing system is doing and why it's doing the way it is. So if it's doing great, then you can kind of look at that. And if it's not doing great, it's telling us what to support to literally help your mitochondria function. This is health on a cellular level, and it doesn't get much cooler or more helpful in terms of prevention than this. Omegas, yeah, definitely we think of omega-3 intake. Most people I think, no, we want a specific ratio of omega-3s and omega-6s. And what's really cool to me about when it comes down to omega imbalances sometimes, what we see here is that, and I think what people learn from this so much is that like nutrient levels are really important, but they are impacting one another. So what I see a lot with the omega scores in people are not that they're not getting enough omega-3s, but if they're deficient in B vitamins, their omegas aren't able to convert from what they took in to like what your cell can actually use and what your cell actually needs. So it's really just blows my mind. Like a magnesium deficiency can actually be responsible for your omega imbalance, not your lack of eating salmon all the time. Like that is just, I mean, I go over this people all the time and it still blows my mind. I just think it's like the coolest thing, like these micronutrients that we're looking at, they're cofactors. Nothing in the body is going to run properly if you don't have enough micronutrients on board and the right ones to help these systems function. Toxic exposure, to speak to that a little bit. We have toxic markers that are tested on here, like you'll see in the sample report here, lead and mercury. But we've also got kind of the pieces that help to fight against toxic exposure that can explain why those things might be high. And if these things are high, your antioxidant levels might be low, which might be why they were able to get so high. And then methylation has to do with detoxification and energy levels in the body. So are you good at activating and using B vitamins, and are you a good detoxifier? This could tell you why, or why that might not be the case. So all of your test results are going to get lumped together and put into these categories so that we can get a better insight into your health and make even better recommendations for you. And a lot of times, I mean, there's so many things we can pick up on this test too. So we're looking at nutrient levels, but these tell us so much. So like, we can pick up on toxic exposure. We have markers in this test. They're not on this page, but they tell you about your gut health. We have markers for candida overgrowth and bacterial overgrowth. We have, oops, sorry about that. We have markers for that can indicate the need for GI support. So we can look at probiotic status and even, if you need enzymes to help with digestion levels too. So there's so much beyond just micronutrients that this test gets into.
So one thing that you didn't mention was the neurotransmitter metabolites.
Yes, yeah.
So those are also really interesting because I can't tell you how many people, we've gone back to this the gut-brain connection, and a lot of the neurotransmitters are produced in the gut. And this can help explain some different things, all the way from like addictive sort of tendencies to feeling like a bump on the log, not getting the right amount of sleep at night because of sleep disturbances. They all can stem back, and we can see them on these neurotransmitter metabolites. And just like you were hinting at, what we see is trending on here. So we can see how many times it goes back to the B vitamins, for example. So if B vitamins show up as low, there's so many other cascading things, including the neurotransmitters that involve B vitamins, for example. And it's so thorough. So it's urine, it's blood, and it's saliva. So we're looking at it from, some of the markers will be for about 2 to 3 weeks prior of your nutrition status. A couple of the markers, it'll be just a couple of days prior, but it helps to give a bigger snapshot than just when you get your blood drawn one time for your annual physical. This is definitely giving you a wider breadth of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a really good idea to kind of help people understand what it is that we do with the test results. And I mean, who would really benefit from a NutrEval test? I know we've covered it a little bit, but one group that I think this is super important for is moms before pregnancy It's a great idea to get all of your nutrient needs where they need to be because baby's going to come and take all you've got. Um, so if you are ahead of the game there, you're going to feel much better. If you're breastfeeding, absolutely, you need a NutrEval probably like 18 months postpartum. And then, I mean, even if no matter what age your kids are, like that can be stressful. A stressful part of life is having kids at home, and kind of running the household. So just to support the stress response, we want to be looking at adequate levels of vitamin C, magnesium, the Bs. I mean, all of this is so important in so many different stages of life for people. I also think anyone on a medication, because a lot of medications are nutrient depleting. I've had this be a game changer for people with migraines also.
Yeah.
Magnesium and migraines, like every single time it's low for my migraine clients.
I was going to say people that are dealing with chronic fatigue,
Yep.
people who get sick all the time.
Yes.
The reason this is so good is because it takes like that broad picture and it helps create the puzzle of what's actually happening in the body. A lot of the blood tests that are done, maybe we get a vitamin D on somebody from a regular provider, maybe B12, but it's very rare that we get such thorough information like this. So this really, I would also say definitely a game changer. Anybody with high stress, anybody that has had mold in their house, the body, if you're feeling any sort of dysfunction, if you're not fully thriving, we can pinpoint and figure out where the mismatch is. And the other cool piece is the saliva. So we test a couple of the genetic markers, and genetics will show your unique profile and your tendency to either need additional nutrients or less of a nutrient. So it is getting down to precision as to what's going to be the best for you. So longevity, anybody that's looking to thrive and live a more full life, like this is definitely a good test for that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And in terms of what we do with the test results, so our role in that is putting you on a supplement schedule that is meeting your nutrient needs. And Erica, I don't know what your clients have noticed with this, but I would say within a week of starting supplements, people feel so much better. Is that what you're noticing? Like, what's the timeline with seeing improvement, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, definitely if it's related to like the B vitamins, for sure. Some of them, like vitamin D, for example, will take a little bit longer to build up in the system. So they'll see definite changes. I would say, yeah, even within a couple days, they can notice some changes, but then it's just this ongoing compounding of feeling better and better as everything starts to balance out in the body.
Yeah, it's so true. I've experienced it myself personally, and it's just, like little by little, you're like, wow, I actually like that was really affecting me. I do feel so much better, like being on a proper schedule. And so what we do as a best practice is we encourage, like if you've never done this test before and you have all these deficiencies and you're supplementing, I like people to get retested after 6 months of taking their supplements. And one thing that we're doing that might not be done at your doctor's office is before you test, we pull you off of supplements. So if you're going into the doctor's office and you always take B12 and you always take vitamin D, you get tested, you're going to be falsely elevated because you've got supplements in your system. So before this test, there's a lot of pre-test instructions that you're going to follow, but one of them is discontinuing supplements and non-essential medication so that we don't have anything interfering with the test results. And then at that 6-month mark, we're going to do a retest and see where your levels are so we can adjust that supplement protocol. We definitely don't want anything getting too high, and we don't want you taking anything that you don't need to be taking.
Yeah, exactly. I like some of the other pages. We don't have them on here, but there's listings of, let's say you're low in vitamin E, for example, or have higher needs. there'll be a listing of the foods that are really supportive and high in vitamin E. So it doesn't have to be just supplements. It's definitely switching the diet as well to meet your nutrient needs. But then same thing, like we also talk about lifestyle factors. So for example, if you are a marathon runner and you can see that your oxidative stress is way too high, you know, it's your body's way of telling you you're overdoing it in a way or need to supplement in additional ways. One of the biggest ones, and I know you and I have talked about this, but the need for glutathione.
Oh man, yeah.
And how we both have really high needs. That was one of the biggest shockers for me because, you know, I'm not perfect, but I do eat very well, a wide variety of foods. I feel like I do the stress management sort of things. I try to have a very holistic lifestyle, and then I see this, and my glutathione needs were very, very high. So I think for anybody, it would give you your specific roadmap to having even better health.
Yeah. And I think it's just, I mean, I think it kind of underlies the importance, like you and I both being aware of this and doing this testing and still having glutathione levels that are less than optimal is like, if that's the case for us, then I'm sure people who aren't as fortunate to be up to speed on these things like we are. Also, I mean, probably everyone could use glutathione at this point. And just to speak to what that is a little bit, it's like the master antioxidant in your body. So it is like the ultimate, like probably most important antioxidant that we're aware of. And it gets worn out and depleted because we live amongst a lot of toxins. So anytime that we're coming into a toxic exposure, glutathione is going to be used. So it's really easy because there are so many toxic things in the environment these days to like run out of glutathione. So that's something probably everyone needs to be aware that needs to be continuously repleted. And depending on how low yours is will determine how much that you might need. Yeah, so that's a super important one. And I see that low in just about everybody.
Yeah, another one of those markers is the lipid peroxidases. So I like what they do. So they look at before they get into the cell and then metabolites after it's within the cell. So you can see, is there a conversion issue? There, it gets so complex, but we really do a good job to help navigate and break it down so that we can help you understand the pathway or where things are getting stuck in the body. You know, you think about there's millions of things that are happening in your body at every single second. So the odds of all of it working perfectly is probably a little mind blowing to think that that could even happen. So if we can even just get closer to optimizing this, yeah, you look at like on here, if it's everything else looks good except your mercury levels in that yellow and almost red, heavy metals play a huge, have a huge negative impact on the body, on the brain. You know, our body is meant to detox, but as we will be able to show you and point out all through this, we can find where your body is not optimally detoxing these different things as well. So it is definitely one of my favorites to go through. And usually, and wouldn't you say too, like it's rare we do just this test for somebody. We usually always recommend having a stool test as long as there are GI issues. Sometimes starting with this will help us then pinpoint and move into a specific area. So whether it's toxic load, whether it's more GI issues, whether it's, you know, changing the diet, I think this one helps look at, like I had said to begin with, that big picture of where we need to hone in next.
Yeah, I definitely think this is a great starting point, and we normally use it with other things. Sometimes I'll just order this. It really depends on the person, but because it is so comprehensive, it does flag for a lot of other stuff. So it's a great starting point. And you know, another group I like to use this for that I forgot to mention was people trying to lose weight.
Mm.
I think that's a really interesting crowd to talk about with this test. But, basically, and there's a page in the report that breaks this down, but if you don't have the right micronutrients, you're never going to be able to convert your macros into energy that the cell can use. So if you're depleted, you're going to be storing a whole lot more energy than if you're optimized with your nutrient levels, and then your metabolism is going to be running much more efficiently.
Yeah, there's so many pieces that just kind of went off in my head about the weight management piece, but you're right. If the if you are not optimal with breaking down nutrients, it's kind of like the insulin resistance and pre-diabetes and all of that too. That's the start of dysfunction in the body where your body's not seeing those receptors. It's not able to pull nutrition into the cell. And that's why that cellular piece is so important. And I'm going to go back to the cell wall. If you don't have the right omegas, if you don't have cholesterol, if you don't have the right amounts of all these things, your cell is either too loosey-goosey and things can get in and out when they shouldn't, or it's too rigid and tight and things are not able to get in or leave as needed. And thousands of things are happening, just to produce this energy in your body. And if they can't get in and out of a cell, we're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just why this test is amazing, because it gives us that kind of information that you're not otherwise going to know. And also, if the body doesn't have what it needs to function properly, it can't. So this is literally like the starting point for getting things to become optimal in your body.
I mean, if we go down the road of, our farming is no longer what it used to be. Our soils are depleted. We think we're getting a lot of the nutrition and nutrients, but they post this, I've seen this a lot, and I'm sure you have too, but where like the nutrients of an orange 40 years ago to today, it's like a tenth of the amount of nutrition now as what it was just 40 years ago. So even if you're eating, all these fruits and vegetables and trying to be more organic, our soils are just depleted as well. We just don't have the same nutrition in our food.
Yeah, and then just to highlight our typical client, right, coming in with digestive issues, I mean, you can eat as well and healthy as you possibly can all the time, but if you're not absorbing those nutrients, like a lot of our clients are not, then you're not absorbing them, like you're going to be deficient. So this just helps to kind of give people a boost in that area too.
And that's why it's not just that blood test where it's that one time. We're looking at the metabolites, so the urine metabolites. So we're able to see what the cell is utilizing. We're able to see what is actually in the body. It's such a different test than, so what it made me think of is like, a lot of times, your doctor, you'll say, I'm fatigued. Okay, let's check iron, of course, but then maybe they'll say, let's check your B12. Your B12, let's say you've been supplementing with it. It could be super high on your test, and your doctor's gonna be like, whoa, you have way too much B12. Stop taking your B12. But when you actually look on the cellular level like this, you could potentially not be even utilizing your B12 and you need more B12.
Yep.
So it is pretty crazy, and it can be very nuanced. And I can understand why for a lot of patients it gets confusing, because they know in their gut, like something's not right. They don't have the energy, but then their lab tests show up normal. And where do they go then?
Yeah, and also people who might be supplementing with a multivitamin that doesn't really have what they need. So people who aren't good at methylating, taking non-methylated forms of B vitamins, that's probably going to make you feel worse.
Yes.
And, vitamins that don't have enough of certain nutrients in them. That just, there's so many like different situations that could come up where even though you're supplementing and eating a healthy diet, it might not be what you need to be doing. So this will really help hone in. And I love the educational, I know you mentioned this earlier, but the educational pages with the food sources too, we really hone in on that and help people get making dietary changes too. The supplements give you a boost, but of course we want what you normally do is to be eating a healthy diet.
So we look at more than just what's on this paper and make a recommendation. We are assessing your sleep and stress status. We are assessing your environmental exposures. We are assessing what you've already been taking as supplements. We assess your symptoms. We look at so many components that go into this in order to give you your custom results and recommendations. And then it's the follow-up piece too, like you said. We want to make sure we're not over supplementing. Once your body starts getting in the groove and working, sometimes it's able to do more on its own than what it was originally. So that retesting piece is important. That ongoing assessment is just, it's really crucial. I can't tell you how many people have been on, let's say they were low in iron, for example, and their doctor told them to go on iron, and then they've been taking it for like 2 years. That's one of the most oxidative
toxic.
things you can do if you
Yeah.
have too much iron. So that's why in all of this is it's a balance, and too much iron then affects other nutrients. And that's why we look at this at that as a whole picture.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and then, like, let's say you do a test, you start your supplement, 6 months later, we're encouraging the retest so we can kind of refine and check on things. And then after that, like if everything looks good and we just want to maintain, then we'll just encourage you to do this once a year, just to stay on top of things. Like, and one of my clients picked up on this in our last session, and I just thought it was so cool. But he was like, if my nutrient levels are where they're supposed to be, that means that my body can do what it needs to do. And that disease just really is going to have a hard time getting to me because my body has everything that it needs to fight it. And it gave me goosebumps just saying it because I love it when people have moments like that. But like, he's so right. It's not like we can't promise or guarantee anything, but if you want a really good chance of just living a long and healthy life and feeling your absolute best, I mean, starting with getting your nutrient levels where they're supposed to be is probably the best thing that you can do for yourself.
That was very well said. And yeah, sometimes it comes most impactfully from our patients like that, because he probably, right, was feeling the benefits of it. And then
Yeah.
when he was educated enough to like understand, how these things impact his health, those are the long-term real tools that we give our patients too, so that they can do this on their own. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so cool. So I think this is a great place to kind of wrap up for today. Erica, is there anything we didn't touch on?
I don't think so. I wish we could go through all of the pages because it is really, really long. There's a
I love
lot of cool
NutrEval.
information. Maybe we'll do another session of this at some point and go through some more details.
Yeah, I could talk about it all day. I love going over to people. Cool. Okay, so this is our new format for office hours, I think. We're going to try it out for a while until we feel like we've really hit the right stride here with it. So we're going to post this on the YouTube page, and then we're going to link the YouTube page to the Facebook group. And if you guys have questions, you can comment below, and we have the link to this Zoom room in the Facebook group, and we'll also make sure that we're sending it out other places as well. So if you ever want to join, you can grab that link and hop in with us and be able to ask questions and join in the conversation. Cool. Thanks so much, guys. And we will be back next week. I'm actually speaking at an event, so we're going to be skipping office hours. But we'll be back in 2 Mondays from now with a new and exciting topic for you guys.